Hi there, and welcome to Let's Slow Down, a podcast for all of you who feel tired and stressed from this overwhelming world. Here we'll have fun, inspiring conversations about living life on our own terms and explore ways to ease the pace of our modern world, because life really is good when you're relaxed enough to be present for it. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Stolting, and I welcome you to this space where I hope to inspire you to slow down, because life is too short to let it go by in a blur. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome, everyone. Today, our guest on the Let's Slow Down podcast is Charlotte Kaye. Charlotte is a decluttering and life coach. She's from the lovely state of Michigan, and we are going to talk about what inspired her to do what she does today. So welcome to the show, Charlotte.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I think it'd be nice to start out just by hearing a little bit about your story and then, a little bit about you, and then we'll get into what you do.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm from Michigan. I went to the University of Michigan for college. We'll keep it brief. When I was there, I studied women's studies. And then I also did an internship in fundraising. So my first career before my business was in fundraising. And then I just got really into mindfulness and personal development and for a lot of to slow down in a lot of different ways because things were kind of happening so fast and so much and was feeling overwhelmed and kind of burned out. And so I started my business in 2019. So we're coming up on 5 years in January, which is wild and amazing.
Very interesting. So, was there one thing I know you had mentioned you had felt some overwhelm and you were just kind of wiped out? Was there like one thing in your life that happened that led to that, or was it just a million little things?
Oh no. So people might resonate with this. I worked for a small nonprofit for about 6 months as their head of fundraising. And I was responsible for everyone's salary, and they were understaffed. And I don't like to say, but some were underqualified for their positions. And I was commuting, an hour there, an hour back every day. And it was just more work than one person could ever possibly do. So that's what led to the burnout pretty quickly. I was there for about 6 months.
Wow. And then you had the courage to walk away from it, which is incredible, because some people stay. A lot of people stay because they
Yeah,
feel stuck.
it was scary. And I walked away from that, and then I actually returned to a different job in fundraising at a higher ed institution, so a little more structure. And then it was a few years after that I actually started my business. But that burnout inspired a lot of getting into meditation and gratitude and personal development on all of. So,
So 5 years, congratulations.
thank
5
you.
years as an entrepreneur and having your own business that's aligned with your values and everything you stand for. That is just such an accomplishment. I want to hear kind of what inspired you to go this direction, but why don't you tell us what your business is exactly first?
Yeah. So my business is Charlotte K Coach. I am a women's life/manifestation coach and also a decluttering coach. And we can get into how those things go together very well. So that's my business. I do one-on-one coaching. I have some courses, online courses, and then I also do in-person decluttering and organizing where going to someone's house, we're ripping everything apart, going through everything. I'm taking away carloads of donations, and we're putting everything back together in a more streamlined, simple, organized, easier way.
That sounds like it must be very gratifying for
Oh,
you and the
it's
people
so
that you work
fun.
with.
Yeah, it's so fun. They're freaking out half the time, and I'm just like, no, we got this. Just keep
It's
going.
all
One
good.
one step in front of the other. We're gonna get there. Don't worry.
I love it. We're definitely going to dive deeper into that and also how those things are related for sure, because there's so much connection. What inspired you to make this your business? So I realize you were overwhelmed with the job for so many reasons, burned out. Did you just wake up one day and say like, all right, this is going to be my new path? How did you change direction?
Yeah. So if you had asked me then, I would have never said I would ever own a business because my idea of owning a business was working crazy hours and having no stability and all of those things. And I've never worked the crazy hours. The stability thing is definitely that for me has been a real experience. But I was like, I like working for other people. I like not, being the one that all the weight is on their shoulders, right? I like working for a mission that I care about. So essentially what happened is so I left that nonprofit job, got back through a myriad of events that now I look back and I'm like, oh, that was totally manifestation before I even knew what manifestation was. Get back to kind of a normal, full-time, regular benefits, all of that kind of job. But once I had started to kind of do mindfulness and all of that for survival, I just got really into it. It was kind of what I was doing on the side. I was talking to someone about this today. Like, I would be listening to personal development podcasts on my commute to and from work. I would be reading all these books. I would be taking courses and all of that. And I really got into the concepts of flow and alignment and manifestation. And so flow essentially it was about removing a lot of structure from my life and a lot of shoulds and just letting myself go with what felt good in each moment. And so I really applied that to my life before and after work and on the weekends, right? But at work it was like these are the things you got to do and you got to get them done and all of that. And so I took that class probably 3 or 4 rounds, like, they would just keep offering it, and if you got it once, you could continue it, so I just did every time, and then as we got to the last round, I was like, the only area I haven't applied this to is my work, and so I was like, "Alright, we're gonna try this for a week. We're gonna clear the calendar, we're gonna put away the to-do list, and I'm just gonna do what I feel inspired to do at work." And I don't know if you can guess what happened, but there was a whole week of work where I didn't do any work. I, like, went to my office, and I sat at my desk, and I just kind of chilled and waited and maybe was on my phone and doing all these things, and by the end of that week, I discovered a couple of things. One, nothing fell apart, my work was still fine, and nobody noticed, and nobody cared, so that gave me a lot of freedom from a lot of the fears that I had of, like, what if I don't? What if I did less? And then the other thing I noticed was well, maybe this work just isn't inspiring to me anymore, and maybe I should start to explore some other things. So I was never, at that point, it wasn't a job that was like soul sucking. I was working for a nonprofit that I was really passionate about. I was doing fundraising, which I enjoyed somewhat, but I was just kind of getting bored of it. And so I was like, what else would I want to do? And there was a point where I kind of realized, like, oh, I take all these classes and oh, these people are coach. Oh, they're getting paid. Oh, this is their business. This is how they make money. And they don't seem terribly burned out. They seem like they have, control over their schedules and all of these things. And so I kind of had that realization and I hired a business coach and I told her, who she's my coach today still actually. I told her, I said, all right, we're gonna try this. But we might end this 6 months or whatever, and I might stay exactly where I am because I'm not unhappy with it, but I wanna explore. I'm like, I'm only gonna do this entrepreneurship thing if it's, like, fun and rewarding and feels better than where I am now. So, I think on our first day of coaching, I was like, "Maybe I'd give my notice in January of 2019," which is, like, 6 months later. And then I did, and it all has unfolded from there.
I think it's such an inspiring story. I mean, you went after, first of all, you listened to your intuition, which I feel like, I mean, I'm still working on that. I think it's so important. I think it's hard.
Yeah.
And to have the guts to then really not only listen to it, like hear it,
Yeah.
but then you acted on it.
Yeah.
And
Well, and that, I was looking at something the other day that because people are like, oh, I admire what you're doing, but I'm not that brave. And I'm like, you know what? Bravery is a muscle. Like I didn't just wake up one day and give my notice and throw it caution to the wind. There was a lot of mindset work that went into it. There was a lot of brainwashing myself around certain things that I wanted to believe, like, you know, a 9 to 5 job isn't necessarily stable either. You could get fired tomorrow. Like, I had to do all of that to piece my mind into doing the thing that my heart wanted to do. So, I don't want it to be like I'm special. Anyone can do this and anyone can practice at this, and that's actually a lot of what I help people with in coaching as well.
that's so inspiring. It sounds like you really have to sort of go back and all these stories that we've told ourselves for all these years that we've been raised hearing, we have to go back and kind of retell them, reshape them.
Mm.
And that helps a lot because before you said you didn't like the word should. I talk about that all the time because I learned not that long ago in therapy one day that I think and say should a lot. And I'm like, my therapist said, well, who says you should do that? And I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know, but I just have been thinking forever. And it's not really serving too well most of the
Yes.
time. We get stuck in these little ruts.
Mhm.
So amazing. How did you shift your mindset to start thinking differently?
Mm. In terms of going for a business, or do you have something more specific? Because I've done a lot of
Yeah, no,
mindset
in
work.
terms yeah, well, any of it, all of it, but in terms of like, okay, like you said, this isn't inspiring me anymore, this job. I wanna do something else. I
Yeah.
love doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You had to shift your mindset to let yourself go there.
Yeah, I think that it helps that I used to say this as a compliment to myself, and now it's probably less so. My brain is smart, which is not always helpful. And so I really kind of put my own logic towards what I wanted and just kind of would ask myself like what's the worst thing that could happen? If the worst thing happened, what would you do? Reminding myself like, yeah, but if you go for this and it doesn't work out, you can get a job. And jobs before, right? It's this or nothing. And so it's a lot of like little lies. They're true, but these little things that would make me feel better like this is reversible. And I think that's when going for some sort of leap or doing something scary, I think it's using your brain to your advantage of, okay, but if this didn't work, how would I fix it? I still to this day will be like, oh, if I can't pay my bills, my dad'll take me in. Like, live on his couch, I've been telling myself that for 5 years and it's never happened. But it's just like these little things to make yourself feel better. And it's also, I mean, that's why working with a coach is helpful. So I definitely was working with a coach, but also just being afraid of putting, I remember when my coach told me, oh, you could make six figures in this business. And I was like, what are you talking about? There's no way. That has happened, which is exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah, but you just look at the thoughts that you're having and you ask yourself and they're true, and people go at this a million different directions. It kind of depends what works best for you, but it's also sometimes finding examples of people who've done things that you want to do and using them as data for yourself of like, okay, if they could do it, I could do it, and just starting to see that it's possible to go from an idea of just something that sounds so crazy and out there, but then finding data to support that it could actually work and it could actually happen. And there's a lot of that because I always tell people if you want all of your inner stuff to come up, start a business because it will.
For sure. Oh my gosh, so many good things there. Let's talk about the decluttering and the life coach and how, well, you already talked about how you actually go into people's homes and
Mhm.
help them through the decluttering
Yeah.
process. So, what do you do as a life coach? And then how are they connected, those two?
Yeah. So as a life coach, I mean, my goal is really to just help people be their authentic selves and follow their intuitions and deal with all the crap that comes up around that, right? Because I think when we do follow our intuition, that's us really living the purpose we're meant to live on this world. And I don't think anyone is meant to just do what everyone else says they should do, right? Like we all have our own journeys. So it's a lot of that. And then with decluttering, there's just a lot of mindset things in decluttering and the way I do decluttering, which is very much kind of Marie Kondo based, life-changing magic of tidying up. Like that decluttering method is just the best one I've ever found. And so there's a lot of different ways that it overlaps. I mean, when you're getting rid of things, you're creating space for new things to come into your life. So that goes along with manifestation, right? If you're every minute of your schedule is booked every hour of every day and you want to call in a new experience, it's like there's nowhere for that new experience to go. So you're going to subconsciously kind of reject that and not
Right.
allow that in. When we declutter a space, we take everything out of the space and only put back what we want to keep. So that's kind of an abundance mindset, right? Rather than let me look in this closet and pull out some things I don't want. Like you're generally not going to want to lose things. Our egos can cling, but if it's more like, okay, what's my new standard and what do I want to keep? There's some abundance that goes on there. And it's just a lot of mindset blocks come up, like the reasons people want to keep things. They don't want to. When I can tell when someone wants to get rid of something, but they're hesitating for an ego reason. So, oh, someone gave that to me, or oh, I spent money on that, or oh, I used to love that, or oh, I'm going to do that one day, right? All of these things that come up in a lot of different ways in our lives. But when it comes to physical things, you can kind of work through it without worrying about someone else's feelings often because it's just a thing, unless
Right.
it's been given as a gift. That's a little, that can be a little bit different, but it really frees yourself. And what I noticed when I started to declutter in this specific way is I really up leveled the standard for what I allowed into my life physically, but then also I had built the muscle of only keeping what I really wanted and what I really loved. And then I was kind of addicted to it, which is why I included it in my business when I started. But also, I would look at like my calendar and my relationships and my commitments. And I would be like, all right, like what's sparking joy here and what isn't? And how can, and like my job at some point wasn't sparking joy anymore. Right. So it was about kind of letting go of that, which was like a big one. So those are a few ways that they
Yeah.
overlap.
I love that you said you up leveled the standard of what you let into your life. Tell us a little bit more about that. That's a powerful statement.
Yeah. I mean, I think it can be a good reflection of your self-confidence and your self-worth, which is also something I definitely help people with and for whatever reason came into this life experience pretty high self-confidence. It's only gotten higher. Some people are probably like, okay, but why? Which is fine.
And you know what? If you don't believe in yourself, then who's going to? You
Right.
have to believe in yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like we accept a lot of things based on that. And I just have, I don't know, it's like, it's my life. And I have a high standard for the way I spend my time because time is really the one resource that we all have. Right. And so I'm just never going to let anyone else dictate that to me. And I'm not going to let energy lower than where I want to be bring me down. Does that make sense?
Yes. I've been reading
Yeah.
a lot about that energy lately and how the vibration that you give off,
Hmm.
I guess, I'm probably not using the right terms, but I find it so fascinating and it's a very new concept to me. So
Mm.
let's talk a little bit about this. You were talking about, being in a flow alignment and
Hmm.
manifestation, how this goes together and how you are up leveling your life when you don't settle for a
Yeah.
certain lower vibration, right?
Hmm.
So talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, and I think your energy is it's also can be described as your point of attraction, right? So I follow a lot of Abraham Hicks. I actually just went on one of their cruises and they talk about the law of attraction and manifestation and all of that. So, if your point of attraction is just yeah, it's how you feel. Your energy is like how you feel, where you're vibrating at, right? Some days you could be really low and tired and pissed off and whatever, or depressed. It's a lower vibration, and that's okay. We all have those days and then you can have that higher vibration. And so, when it comes to your stuff physically, it's like what's pulling your vibration down. Like you may not think about it, but like all these things that are in your home or in your life, physical or not physical, those affect it, right? And so when you release the things that represent a past version of you or a desired future version of you, or you have your ex's stuff hanging around, or you have these clothes that don't fit you anymore. We know that. Energetically, we feel that, which is why, I'll spend half a day with someone decluttering things and I always check in the next day and ask how they feel. And almost always they say they feel physically lighter, which makes no
Wow.
sense because they've lost no weight. But energetically, you do feel lighter because you don't have all this baggage hanging on to you. And it's also about trusting that if you release something like that, that something better is going to come in. And that I've been thinking about trust a lot. Again, not the easiest thing for me, but it is a huge part of manifestation and trusting that, if you do release something, that something else is going to take its place. So say you're dating someone who's okay, but maybe, it's not like a long term thing. Releasing that you're gonna energetically feel so different afterward, and then you're actually gonna raise your vibration and be able to call in something or someone at a higher vibration as well.
It's so interesting. This has been going on for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and it's a concept that I definitely want to learn more about for sure. So, this all connects with intentional living. I'm big into, simple intentional living. For the longest time, I felt like I was in the rat race and didn't even realize it for quite some time. So, for me, slowing down was really important because I needed that space initially to just listen, forget about listening to my intuition, just hearing my intuition, giving myself a minute to consider, is this still serving me? Is this inspiring me? Is this what I want to be doing? I think especially as we get older, as we become adults, we are on this path that we have been on, right? High school, college, okay, you got your degree and whatever. And you think that that's the only way.
Mhm.
So it is very inspiring and freeing to just know that we have choices and that we do change, we evolve. That's part of being human, is that we grow and evolve. So we can embrace that. And as you said, like, find your alignment and just keep flowing, or fight hard to stay on whatever that original path was that wasn't meant to be forever.
Yeah.
So I give you so much credit. I know you said you don't think you're brave, but I think you were incredibly brave for choosing this path. And I can tell how passionate you are about all of these things and how much it served you.
Thank you.
So it's so refreshing to see that, like, in a real person. It's one thing to read about it in a book, but we're talking to someone who's done it, Guy.
Thanks.
So I think it's very, very brave and very inspiring. Thank you for sharing this story. So say someone comes to you and they're like, I just feel like I'm kind of stuck. I feel like the clutter is bringing me down. I feel like I can't live as intentionally. I'm not as clear-minded as I'd like to be.
Yeah.
Where do you start?
I really focus on calling in people who are ready, right? And I'm very happy to give a million decluttering tips to anyone who wants to hear them, because I always like meeting new people and doing all that. I'm like, they may or may not be ready right now, and that's fine. So usually what happens is they'll get connected to me somehow and we'll talk, and they'll just unload a lot of stuff, right? Everyone has a story of why they have clutter, right? And the
Yep.
background, and they know exactly where it came from, and they know exactly why it's happening and all of that. So a lot of it's just listening, and then, just describing how it'll work. And often I'll have them say we're texting or something. I'll say, send me a video or send me a picture of what you've got going on, because a lot of people, it's scary to show me their space. I am never scared of a messy space, but it's definitely part of a little bit of like revealing that shadow, or a space they might have some shame around. But usually they're just so over it that it doesn't matter anymore, and they're just ready to go. So I will say, when it comes to decluttering, usually people reach out to me pretty ready to go. They're not asking me; they're just ready for it to be gone. And eventually we get sick of our own stuff, right? And so I'm just there to help when that moment happens.
It's a great resource for someone to have in you, and oftentimes takes that support to really get to that next level. So
Mhm.
I'd love for you to share a couple of resources for everyone listening. I know you had mentioned, the self-improvement and development, books, podcasts, documentaries, whatever. What are some of your top favorites in all of these areas? Not only decluttering, but manifestation and
So, I mean, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo is a great place to start. I do recommend the book over the show, because the book goes way in more detail into the process than the show does. I would say, manifestation-wise, anything Abraham Hicks. So you could listen to the book, The Law of Attraction, or just go on YouTube. There's like a million Abraham Hicks videos on YouTube for manifestation. And then I would say, mindset wise, so I actually teach a professional development class to some undergraduates every summer. And I just started assigning them the book Playing Big by Tara Moore. It's about women's leadership, although it's applicable to everybody. And it's a lot about those mindsets that can hold us back from playing big in our lives, in whatever way that means, whether it's trying to be the CEO of a company, start your own business, or, be a stay-at-home parent, or whatever that looks like for you. So I would say those would be my top recommendations.
great. I'll make sure to link those. I've read Marie Kondo's book, but I have not done too much with the other two that you mentioned. So
Yeah,
definitely check those out. Playing Big sounds right up my alley.
it's
Very
really
interesting. I
good.
love books like that.
Yes. I have a podcast also, if y'all like listening to me, the Cozy and Connected podcast. So all these kinds of topics are covered on there too.
Absolutely. I'll put the link in for that as well. Charlotte, it was great talking to you. So thank you for being here today.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode and have been inspired to slow down and start living life at your own pace. As a brand new podcast, your listener voice matters. If Let's Slow Down is resonating with you, please take a minute to leave a review and rate us. Subscribe to the show wherever you listen and share it with friends. Remember, this is a process, so go easy on yourself. Be gentle and take all the space you need to thrive, because the world needs you to be at your best, to love and serve others and yourself.